Many people from Yorkshire and Lincolnshire joined thousands on the streets of London yesterday for the Put It to the People march, calling for a second referendum. Earlier in the week, pro-Brexit campaigners tramped through Yorkshire as part of Nigel Farage's march to leave. This morning I caught up with marchers from opposite sides.
Hi, my name's Louise and I was on the People's Vote march yesterday.
Hi, I'm Jim and I was on the march to leave on Wednesday.
Louise, there were 1 million people on the streets of London yesterday, according to the organisers, but 17.4 million people voted to leave the European Union. How do you convince them you're right and they're wrong?
We weren't about convincing 17.4 million people that we're right and they're wrong. It's about assessing what the will of the people is now in 2019. So it wasn't about overturning two or 3 years ago. It was about saying we now know a lot more now. A lot of people have changed their minds. But both ways, let's find out what the will of the people is, because nobody seems to like Theresa May's deal.
Jim, your march has come in for a bit of derision. I mean, you would never get 1 million people on the streets, would you?
Not over the stretch of 10 days, no. You've got to have 10 days off work, 10 days childcare, be fit enough to walk from Sunderland all the way down to London to put all that kind of thing together. 29th March and the big one in London. I think it's going to be similar turnout, I'm hoping, to the Remain march. So I think we've got the numbers.
Louise, what do you say to those who say there is still a big silent majority out there, who want Brexit to happen, and they want Brexit to happen soon?
Well, first, they're not silent, but yes, there is a lot of people out there that want Brexit. I'm part of a campaign group in South and West Yorkshire, and we meet people every week, every day, that still say they want to leave. So that's absolutely true, but we also meet people that say they want to stay and they've changed their minds. They voted to leave as a protest vote. They voted because they wanted money for the NHS. They voted because we've had this whole area ignored for many, many years by successive governments. So yes, there are a lot of people that want to leave, but there's a lot of people that want to stay. It's not a case of who's got the most numbers on a march or who's got the most on a Twitter poll. It's about taking this back to the country now and saying, is this what you really want? Because we'll believe that is.
So Jim, what do you say to Louise, who's calling for another public vote?
I think that if that happens, that's going to set a precedent in terms of voting. I think a lot of people are just going to go, what's the point of me voting in the future now if it's just going to be overturned, or we have to be taken back to the polls over and over again until we get the right answer. I think it was quite clear what we voted for. Do you want to leave the EU or do you not want to leave the EU? And we wanted to leave the EU. We didn't want to stay in a bit of the EU or keep a bit of the freedom of movement, or do you want to sort of leave the EU and keep the customs union? It was quite clear. We voted to leave.
Quite clear, Louise?
Well, it was, but again, you listen to Jim and what people voted for. Did they vote to leave? Did they vote for freedom of movement? There were so many reasons why people voted to leave 3 years ago. So you can't hold us to what was said then. We know that people lied, and people say that on both sides people lied. That's a fair point, but let's have an honest debate about what the EU actually means, because people were made to be very angry about the EU, and in all honesty, it's not the EU's fault. It's successive governments in this country that have caused this problem, and I think we all need to now come together and say, what were the problems? Why did people want to leave? And is this the way? Because this doesn't look like it's actually going to solve those problems.
And what about all those people who've signed that online petition calling for Article 50 to be revoked? That's
great, but that's far short of 17.2 million people who voted to leave in the first place. It's it's nice that they've come out and they've had the chance to vote online, but I don't think it really makes that much difference.
Well, the pressure is growing on Theresa May this Sunday morning, with some of her own ministers saying she hasn't got long left in office. I know you're not going to agree, but thank you for both putting your points forward on this never-ending saga that is Brexit.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.